Hello, everybody. I'm here at the site of a very sad event. This massive tree was brutally murdered by chainsaw welding maniacs. Um, so yeah, it's dead. Something I find as you get older is you become less idealistic and more practical. Uh, and I guess that continues. Those of you who have children probably know this even more. Um, And so the younger me is going to think, this is a horrible crime. You killed a tree. This is a nice tree. You could have left it here. Um, but then the landowner me is like, well, you paid thousands of dollars for these buildings and those solar panels that this tree could have easily fallen on because it's a softwood tree. It's not even hardwood tree. It's a softwood tree. It's probably no more than 50 or 60 years old because softwood trees are faster growing. And when I first started clearing this land a long time ago for my lot, and oh man, it looked totally different. This was all just secondary crap growth everywhere and a bunch of old pasture, and this tree was here, and I thought, oh, this will be good centerpiece. I'll leave it here. And it was even a wild fruit tree. It gave these big cherimoya-looking fruits that were in the Annona family, but they were very bitter and spicy and toxic. And I was like, oh, this would be a cool centerpiece. And then, I realized this is the flat area I have to build on. I only have limited space to build on. The rest is kind of wavy and this and that. And so it started dropping these big cherimoya fruits on my roof and leaving big, smashing parts of the roof. And there's some leaks in the roof because of that I have to fix. And then at one time a branch fell and destroyed part of the roof over there. And I could tell this tree just, there was no place in my future for this tree. And also the younger idealistic me was like, well, maybe the fruit has some cool medicinal properties. Um, maybe we'll find out that this wild annona is some rare chemical in it that does this to the body or something. It'll be cool. And then I started reading about wild annonas, and apparently they're all just extremely toxic, and they just paralyze you. And there's really no reason to keep a massive wild annona tree around. So aside from sentimental value, there was no reason to keep the tree, so I killed it. It's dead now. And it had a pretty big canopy. It was really cool. And yeah. One really cool thing it did before it died was, before I killed it, we had a full moon, and it just happened to coincide with right when the new growth was popping out of the tree. It had dropped its leaves for some reason. It does like once a year, and it was shooting out new growth. Right when the new growth was out, it's like very shiny, reflective little tiny pieces of leaf that come out of the buds, and the full moon was shining on it at night. This was like a week ago, and it looked like it had Christmas lights. It was so beautiful. It was like little tiny white Christmas lights all over the tree. It was really amazing to see. And then a week later, I brutally murdered it. So anyways, we're probably going to chop up the chunks and cut some wood. Of course, it's softwood, so this isn't really worth using at all in this climate. It will rot very, very quickly. So what they use that kind of softwood for is forms for cement. When you're doing cement construction, you need to pour cement. They'll use the boards from softwood trees like this to make the cement form. So I'll probably like sell it to somebody for that, or I may chop it into smaller chunks and use it for eventually compost for a vegetable garden or something, because the rotten logs are good for that. There's a whole ecosystem growing in this tree. You can see right in there, there's a big like ant nest, or maybe it's a wasp nest, either one. And there's some plants growing off of the wasp nest and some ferns down there. And up here, right here, there's orchids and ferns. There's a whole little miniature forest growing right out of the little nook of the tree here. Because obviously leaves and stuff fall on parts of the bark and start to decompose in that soil, and then birds poop out little orchid seeds. There's a little bit of a grass-like orchid growing in there. That's kind of cool. And obviously there's lichen and moss and stuff growing on the tree and on the orchids as well. And then over here there's another little spot where there's some orchids and things, various plants growing off the side of the tree. Yeah. There's also like parasitic vines that grow off. They'll just shoot up on the bark and start growing down. So today we're going to cut it up into chunks and get rid of the rest of it. But yeah, I noticed with a lot of things, people start out very, very, very idealistic. And if you read about Buddhism, that's kind of like the monk who goes off and lives in the cave and doesn't talk to anybody for 20 years. Does he get closer to enlightenment? Maybe, but does he help the world at all? Probably not. And then there's the more practical person that tries to follow good principles in their daily life, and it's kind of, they call it the middle way, trying to mix the two. So I find early on, when I was like 20, 21, I learning about all these new ideas. I got really excited about everything. I got really ideologically kind of high on ideology, basically, and you're really a lot of principles you hold purely intellectually, and you can't really find a basis in reality for them. And then as you get older, you start to find that there's no basis in reality for some of the principles that you hold and some of the ideologies that you're very religiously zealous about. So things like cutting down trees. I remember walking with a few people actually through the woods at Freehaven when we were making the road. It happened a couple times. Most people were like, yeah, you're making a road, this makes sense. Because we were cutting down a lot of secondary forest, which isn't even primary forest, so why are you crying? But these people were like, oh, this is just, we want to buy land here, but this is just so sad, so much destruction. Literally, we're cutting a 6-meter swath through a forest that's over 100 hectares. So we're barely doing any damage, and we're doing it to make a road so that we can have sustainable homesteads up here and leave civilization and make a smaller footprint on society, on the world, So everything's being done for a good purpose. We're being as minimally destructive as we can. We're only destroying really secondary forests. It was all out of little tiny trees and brush. And they were so sad. You were cutting down. Oh, this is just so sad. All the destruction. They were so emotional. They couldn't control their emotions. They couldn't stop and be practical for 1 second. It was all this religious, intellectual ideology that had no basis in reality or practicality. So you have to be able to mix the two. You can't be too practical and just cut down your entire forest and sell it for the money, but you can't be too ideological and not do anything, because then you didn't do anything and you have nothing and you've accomplished nothing. So you have to intertwine, you have to find a balance between the ideology and the practicality so that you can get forward, you can move forward in life. There's my durian hill over there. I got to do a plant update video soon, show you how the durians are doing. And yeah, we chopped up all the brush. They had a huge canopy, and the canopy we all chopped up and put it into a long pile right here along the mulberries, which are kind of behind it, very small, and then we have a big pile over there. Yeah, so that's all. I just talked for 7 minutes about murdering a tree. It was a lot of fun. Hope to see you guys in the next video. Have a great day.